Hey everybody, this is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover, and guess what? It's time with yet another naughty vampire movie. And today we're going to be talking about, I'm sorry I don't have the case for this, but I do have the disc. Today we're going to talk about Andy Warhol presents Blood for Dracula, also known as Andy Warhol's Dracula. The movie is written and directed by Paul Morrissey. It stars Udo Kier, Joe D'Alessandro, and Stefana Cassini, who you remember from Suspiria, other movies like that. Now, this movie here, it's very unique. The movie is X-rated, pretty much. As far as I know, it was X-rated when it was released. It's not porn, but it's pretty damn close. Um, the the thing is, this movie was made. The writer director Paul Morrissey, he was gonna do one movie. He was gonna do, I believe it was Frankenstein first. And then they turned around and told him they wanted a Dracula movie to go with it. So at the time, Morrissey ended up doing two movies. He did this one, and then he did Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, which is, known under the title Flesh for Frankenstein, which that movie's pretty explicit as well. But yeah, this here, I'm sorry, I can't help it. It's like if you get a chance, if you can find these, that's the bad part about these movies. They are right now they're out of print. They're extremely hard to find. They used to have Criterion editions. I'm really hoping at some point within the next year or so, some company, I don't care who, I don't care if it's Vinegar Syndrome or Seven or Arrow or Shout Scream Factory, whoever, I hope somebody gets a hold of these two movies and re-releases them and puts, bonus features and things like that on them. Because, this would, these are ones that, be fun to have on Blu-ray and stuff. They make for great conversation pieces. Although, I will say for Blood for Dracula, I know women like vampire stories like Twilight, True Blood, Vampire Diaries, things like that. I wouldn't exactly recommend showing this to a woman on a first date. Okay, I really wouldn't. I wouldn't do that anyway, though. But seriously though, I really am hoping that we do get better Blu-ray editions of these coming up. I would like to see these remastered, 2K, 4K. I don't give a damn. Just let's get these out with bonus feature. This does have commentary on here. Udo Kier does a commentary on it and stuff, and so yeah, basically, this is very much a very naughty vampire movie. Definitely very sexy. Lots of some definite, almost borderline hardcore scenes. I mean, a lot of softcore sex scenes and stuff. And I mean, it's very close, very close, and lots of nudity. And this one here it gets a little pervy in some parts. So basically, the story starts off. You have Udo Kier. He's playing Count Dracula, and basically, there is a difference between this Dracula and a lot of other Dracula movies. In this version of Dracula, basically Dracula can only survive on the blood of virgins. He can't have, if a woman has lost her virginity or anything, he cannot drink their blood because, it makes him sick. It makes, he can't, his body repels it. So he has to look for blood and everything else, and he can only get it from virgins. Now, see, the thing is, there's this family, and this family, has the mother, the father. There's four daughters altogether, and so Count Dracula, makes out that he is a count. He has all this money and everything else. Now, this family, they come from a very wealthy family bloodline, and they used to be well known and well respected and everything else. But over time, their castle is kind of falling apart. Their name doesn't hold as much weight as it used to, and stuff like that. And Dracula basically makes these people think that, hey, I have, I'm very well connected. I have a lot of money, this and that, and all this other kind of stuff. And he makes these people think that by marrying him, if one of the daughters marries him, that will like boost their name back up to what it once was. And so the father says, okay, well, yeah, go ahead, come down here. You can meet our daughters and, see and everything else. And, um, but what the father and the mother does not realize is that the two of the daughters are having an affair with Joe D'Alessandro's character, and he's the groundskeeper, and basically he's kind of like this, kind of like the guy who just goes around, make sure everything's fixed, make sure everything's clean, all this other kind of stuff. Basically, the handyman, gardener, kind of like jack of all trades and stuff. And so it's like, the thing is he's having sex with two of the daughters, but when they're not having sex, they're constantly bickering with each other over class status. And the two daughters are always making snide comments to him and putting him down because he's poor, and the girls could never see themselves being married to somebody like him, and they could never like take the relationship super seriously and all this other kind of stuff. And meanwhile, he's, I mean, they kind of back and forth. I mean, the two daughters, one minute they're talking about that they would like to marry him, then they talk about they don't want to marry him, talking about the possibility of like, keeping him around as a servant. So even if they marry, if one of them marries Dracula, they could still maybe have him around to play around with. So, I mean, there's kind of all this stuff going on. And Joe D'Alessandro's character, he's talking about there's one of the daughters he really, really wants to get with. And he's even quoted in the movie as saying, it's like, your sister, I'd like to rape the hell out of her, and this movie, you're going to find out. I mean, I would definitely say if you're feminist and you're into all politically correct and everything else, I would definitely say stay the hell away from this. You're not going to like it. Okay. This is not Twilight. This is not Twilight. It's not Vampire Diaries. This is not, okay. If you're looking for kind of like the whole female empowerment, like woman trying to have her cake and eat it too over werewolves and vampires, you're not going to get that with this movie. It's definitely not like that. Joe D'Alessandro's character, he's very, his character is pretty misogynist. He has no problems like one of the daughters he's sleeping with there, Stefana Cassini from Suspiria. He's sleeping with her, but he has no problems turning around knocking the piss out of her and forcing himself on her and kind of, not kind of, pretty much raping her and forcing her to, do stuff with him and all this other kind of stuff. And he's constantly like, putting them down and talking down because they're doing it to him too. They kind of, like I said, they're always having this kind of like little class struggle between each other. And the daughters are saying, no, we're daughters of this rich family, and we're going to bring our family's bloodline back up again, and when we do, you're just going to be another peasant that we look down on, and all this other kind of stuff, and we're going to have a man who's going to give us money and take care of us, and blah 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 blah, and all this other kind of stuff. And he's turned around saying, you don't need this guy and everything else, and there's nothing wrong with you getting off your ass and do a little bit of work, and all that kind of stuff. It's, saying like it's good. Everybody should learn work. Everybody should take responsibility and stuff like that. So so they've always got this like bickering class thing going on. But then they turn around, they start having sex, and he's beating the piss out of these girls or forcing himself on them or something like that. So, but anyway, where this movie, this movie does get pervy in that sense, but also it gets pervy in the sense that, like I mentioned a minute ago, that Joe D'Alessandro's character, he really, really wants the other sister. And the thing is, though, is that, they tell him that the sister that he wants, she's 14 years old. So basically, Joe D'Alessandro's character in this movie is a pedophile. He wants to have an underage girl for a girlfriend. So, I mean, this is basically his character really is the kind of guy you would see on, To Catch a Predator or something like that. So, but that's kind of his thing. Like, even though he's sleeping with the others, he's telling them, I would willingly drop you girls tomorrow if I could have your sister. And they're telling, she's a child. She's 14 years old. She's a goody two-shoes. You never get her and all this other kind of stuff. So Udo Kier's Dracula, he arrives at this castle, and, he's got an assistant and everything else, and he has a sister and all this stuff. So he's, starting to get to know these women and everything else. And he's trying to start to, get to know them and seduce them and lure them in so that he could feed off of them And the girls are saying this like, well, it's okay because he's not going to know that we're not virgins and all this other kind of stuff. And if we just clean up and everything else, he'll never know. He'll be none the wiser and stuff like that. So, but then when he starts drinking their blood, he realizes that they're not virgins because he starts getting sick, and ultimately he turns the girls into vampires. But basically they're not feeding him. He's not getting the nourishment that he needs from them. And then he goes and he bites her character too, and it's the same thing. But this entire time they're going about this whole thing of, oh yeah, all we got to do is just make him think that we're virgins. Just tell him we are. He'll never know, and all this other kind of stuff. But then he's talking about like oh my god, these women, their blood is killing me and stuff like that, and all this other kind of stuff. So then you're kind of getting towards the climax of the movie, and Joe D'Alessandro, he's starting to put the pieces together, and he realized like her character and the other sisters, they were turned into vampires. And the only thing is though, like it's never really stated in this movie that if he kills if he kills Dracula, do they go back to normal again? Are they still vampires or whatever else? I don't think it ever really states that. So anyway, so you got the one sister, she's kind of disappears and all this other kind of stuff, and then you got the younger one, the one that Joe D'Alessandro wants. At one point, he corners her, and like the sisters, they're going to take him to Dracula so that he could feed off of her. And so she runs, and she runs into him, and she tells him that Dracula wants to bite her and drink her blood, and he explains to her that the reason why is because she's a virgin, and she need the best way she can be safe is to lose her virginity and all this other kind of stuff. So basically, he pins her up against the wall and has sex with her. He I mean, even though you kind of like understand, it's still rape, but it's kind of like you understand why he's doing it, because if she loses her virginity, then Dracula can't feed off of her. So basically, yeah. So he kind of nails a 14-year-old girl, and by the end of the movie, that's kind of the pervy part about this. By the end of the movie, basically the two of them are a couple now. So he ends up, he ends up he nails the underage girl. They become kind of like a couple, but because she loses her virginity, she bleeds and everything else, and the blood gets on the floor, and Dracula comes along, sees her blood on the floor, gets on the floor, licks it up, and everything else. And then you got the mother who kind of like, she's just more like, she's so kind of oblivious to everything that's going on that she doesn't realize that two of her daughters are now vampires. She doesn't realize, all she knows is that this, loathsome poor guy had sex with her daughter. And, it's like, why does he think he's good enough to force himself on a young girl and stuff like that? And he's trying to tell her, it's like, lady, don't you understand? You got bigger problems here. You got a damn vampire in the castle and stuff like that. So yeah, so he goes and, there's a showdown with him and Dracula and everything else. And, kills Dracula and defeated and all this other kind of stuff. But like I said, it's never really explained if the two sisters, well, it turns out that the one sister that kind of goes away, she comes back and is revealed that she is a virgin, that she's going to be the one to marry Dracula, and he fed off of her and everything else. And then when she sees him dead, she decides to take her own life to be with him, and so she ends up dying and stuff like that. So, but like I said, it's never really explained at the end of this movie if it's never explained if the two sisters, transform back or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a very politically incorrect, very, very naughty, definitely lots of nudity, lots of sex. Let's see here. Quite a bit of blood. Most of the blood you see is like the scenes where Udo Kier as Dracula, he's, trying to feed off of one of the girls, but, he can't drink the blood, so he gets sick from it. So a lot of it's just him throwing up the blood. That's kind of where your blood comes in. And there are some special effects. I don't want to give away too much, but there are some special effects in the last scene with Dracula and Joe D'Alessandro's character. and not really the most. I'm going to be honest with you, not the most convincing special effects in the world. Certainly not at the level of Greg Nicotero or Tom Savini. But anyway, though, it's altogether it's intriguing. I mean, it really is trying to be more of an art film. It's beautifully photographed. It's well made. Um, it does try to have a social commentary to it, because there's that whole thing of upper class, lower class, all that other kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, there's that, and but anyway, though, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's Blood for Dracula. It's not a bad movie. Udo Kier is good as Dracula. It's definitely a different take on Dracula. Um, Gonna say, this is definitely one of the most erotic vampire movies I've ever had or I've ever seen. Um, the acting, it can be good. Some of the acting, not so much. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this here is definitely not Twilight. It's not Twilight. I should put that in the tagline. But this is not Twilight. It's not True Blood. There really is no like female empowerment thing here. There is quite a bit of misogyny. Um, there's not really a strong female character in this movie. Joe D'Alessandro, he's the hero, if you want to call him that. But how much of a hero can he be when technically the guy is he is a pedophile, and he is a misogynist, and he likes to smack women around and stuff like that, and all this, and be rough with them, and kind of throw them away and talk to them like they're trash and stuff. So I don't know. So I mean, that's what I'm gonna say. This is definitely this is a '70s vampire movie, and I mean, if you just want to see it for all the nudity, there's plenty of that to keep you interested. But yeah, I mean, if like I said, if you show this to a woman, I definitely would not recommend you show it to her on the first date. Um, Find out how much of a vampire movie fan she is, beyond Twilight and True Blood and Vampire Diaries before you even think about showing this to her. Ask her if she's put off by lots of explicit nudity and quite a bit of sex in a vampire movie. So, because there's plenty of that in here. So, but anyway, though, yeah, this is something honestly I could see. Like I said, there was a Criterion edition, I believe, of this one and for Flesh for Frankenstein a while back. But now, like I said, both of these are pretty much out of. Unfortunately, I don't have Flesh for Frankenstein. I want to get that. It's one of the reasons too why I wish that some company, like I said, I don't care if it's Vinegar Syndrome or Severin or somebody, Arrow, Scream Factory, I don't care who. Somebody hopefully get a hold of these two movies and re-release them on Blu-ray, and I don't care, do 2K Master, 4K Master, whatever. Let's just get better versions of these movies out, and stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, if you definitely want like a super naughty, I mean, if you want kind of like if you want like a vampire movie that kind of makes you feel like a real bad boy, this is one you want to get in your collection. This is one you definitely want to have, because this one here will make you feel like, yeah, I'm pretty much a naughty bad guy. This is because I got this, really kind of, like I said, politically incorrect, not your girlfriend's kind of vampire movie. This is pretty intense stuff. So, but anyway, though, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this review. This is Blood for Dracula. Like I said a dozen times in the past, few minutes, it's like, yeah, I mean, if you want, sex in your vampire movie, you want a lot of nudity, threesomes, uh, pedophilia, that kind of thing. Yeah, this is your movie. So anyway, so that's going to wrap it up for Blood for Dracula. Came out, I believe, it was 1974 that this came out. So, but anyway, though, so that's going to wrap it up here. And I'm Sinema77, horror and cult film lover, and I love naughty, dirty, filthy, irredeemable vampire movies. And if you love them too, then you'll love this. Hope you do too. So, if you took the time to watch this video, thank you so much for doing so. I sincerely appreciate it. If you like this video, please take the time to like and subscribe, please. This is Cinema77, horror and cult film lover, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.